to Eye on New York. I'm Lori Pune, and we're talking to Mike Greenberg, who's the co-host of Mike and Mike in the Morning on ESPN. He's also an anchor on SportsCenter, the author of the very funny book, Why My Wife Thinks I'm an Idiot. And he's also a spokesperson and board member for a great organization called Cancer Hope Network. So you were continuing to just talk about why you chose to be a leader in Cancer Hope Network. Well,
again, because my friend Ken asked me to be a part of it, and it's such a wonderful group, and I think that what I was able to bring is something exactly like this. Our charity is one, as I was mentioning before, that is well-funded. It's not that we don't need money, but my role really is not to try and bring in money. It's to let people know that we exist. It's to let people know that there is this resource for you that is free and confidential if you're diagnosed with cancer and you need help and you have questions. And also, we need volunteers for people who are living with cancer. If you are living with cancer, if you are diagnosed with cancer and you're willing to share your stories and answer questions and be there for someone, then we definitively can use your help as well.
How many people does this organization reach?
I wish I had those numbers in front of me, but thousands and thousands, and hopefully more and more by the day.
Are people living longer with cancer now?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the advances they've made. You know, at ESPN, the charity that we started at ESPN is called the V Foundation, which is a wonderful charity, which is started in honor of Jim Valvano, who is a great basketball coach who died of cancer about almost 15 years ago now. And ESPN, that charity has raised tens of millions of dollars for cancer research, and absolutely, I mean, we are closer and closer and closer. We will be able, in our lifetime, there will be a cure for cancer.
You believe that?
Absolutely, absolutely. And Mike and I have worked very hard for the V Foundation as well. And so these are two totally separate things. There's the cancer research, and what they need is money, because what they're doing is they're funding research programs. And then there's the Cancer Hope Network, which is the other end of it. Until there is a cure for cancer, what can we do to help people who are diagnosed, who are living with cancer? And that's what Cancer Hope Network does.
And what's it like for someone who never thought of themselves as having cancer, they didn't have it, it was always the other, and then suddenly they get the diagnosis and it's them? What is that experience like?
Well, I think it's got to be hell. I mean, I think it has got to be about as bad a thing as can happen to you, and I'm very fortunate to say that it's never happened to me. And that really is the point, is that I don't really fully understand. I mean, I can talk to some of these volunteers, and what I find is that I'm not asking any of the right questions, you know. I think for each person, probably the best answer to that is for each person it's very personal. And it probably depends on where you are in your life. If you have kids, I think you probably worry mostly about your kids, who's going to take care of them if this actually takes me away. You know, for each person, I think it's probably very personal. But then I think there are some very universal qualities, and those are the things that the volunteers at Cancer Hope and that other people living with cancer understand, that, again, people like us are fortunate enough not to.
On your radio show, you speak about and support causes, nonprofits, Cancer Hope Network, among other things, the V Foundation. How was that decision made that charity was going to be a priority for your show?
Well, you know, we are very fortunate. We started out as a very small show, and things have gone really well for us. We're on 330 radio stations. Our audience is over 3 million people now. We're simulcast every single day on ESPN2. So we reach a lot of people, and I think with that comes a lot of responsibility. And first and foremost in the media, there is a responsibility to sort of be fair and to be accurate and not to yell fire in a crowded movie house. But then with that, you also get the opportunity to help people. It's interesting. A really awful tragedy might take place, something like the relatively recent shootings at Virginia Tech. And I got an email from the sports editor of the school newspaper at Virginia Tech, who, in the days after that shooting, Mike and I talked a lot about that. And we talked about it from the perspective, Mike, my partner, has kids much older than mine, and his son is going to be going away to college next year. And we talked about it from the perspective of being dads and what that means to us. And I can't tell you, this one particular email, we got a lot of messages from the campus, but there's one email from the sports editor of the Virginia Tech school newspaper, wrote me a long email about how much it meant to him and to some of his friends that we were talking about this on our show. And you realize how much power you have and how completely undeserving you really are of it. I mean, I'm just a guy, I'm just an idiot, to be completely honest with you, just trying to sort of make things work with a job and a wife and 2 little kids. But people, because you're on the air, people take so seriously the things that you say that if you don't use that to try and make other people's lives better, then shame on you. And so that's what we've tried to do.
And some celebrities will say, I'm not a role model. I'm doing this for me. I don't have to worry about what other people take from my actions.
Well, I'm certainly not a role model. I mean, I don't consider myself a role model. I really don't.
But isn't that, I mean, you just said, though, that with power comes responsibility. People turn to you and look to you for compassion, for wisdom, for advice. Doesn't that make you a role model?
I guess if people were to try and emulate the things I do, I would be proud of that. But I guess more to the point, I think we all, for the most part, have sort of a moral obligation to sort of live our lives in a decent way and be decent to people. And that's pretty much, I think, where the obligation ends. And then if you can go on and you can help people, it was Charles Barkley who famously said, "I'm not a role model, I shouldn't raise your kids." And I actually, on some level, understood what he meant by that and agreed with it more than a lot of other people did. But at the end of the day, I think if you can help people, you should. But there is, to a degree, I think, an element of phoniness involved in a lot of these things. I like Ben Affleck. I've met Ben Affleck. I've interviewed Ben Affleck. But I will never forget when Ben Affleck went out and did this whole thing about voting, a big campaign. You should vote. Everyone get out there and vote. And then someone did like 5 minutes of research and realized that he had never registered to vote in his entire life. So I think that there is an element of phoniness that goes with a lot of the celebrity charity stuff that Mike and I have tried very hard to stay away from. I try not to talk about things I don't really know much about. Cancer Hope Network is something I do know a lot about. Cancer charities, my wife's mother and father are both cancer survivors. So it is something that is quite important in my family. And so this is something I've dedicated myself to.